The UK is considering a requirement for social media platforms to prioritise trusted news sources in a bid to combat misinformation and enhance public access to accurate information. For more, we're joined by Dr. Karen Sutherland from the Uni of the Sunshine Coast. What do you make of this?
Good luck. Honestly, we've seen in Australia when governments try to force social media platforms to do things around news. Remember the Facebook news blackout? Do we want to go through that again?
No, we don't. But also the idea of governments telling an organisation which news sources are trusted and not really raises alarm bells with me as well, because we live in such a partisan world when it comes to a lot of these news channels that a left-wing government might say prioritise the BBC or the ABC or CNN. A right-wing government might say we don't want to know about them, ban them, we're going to sue them, as the Trump administration has been doing. This opens a can of worms, surely.
Oh, 100%. And you're absolutely right, because they have already listed the news outlets that they want. And yeah, you can't dictate what people are going to, particularly not in the democratic country. So I think that's definitely something. And I think it comes off the back of last week's results from that survey saying that social media is the main vehicle now where people are consuming news. So there's worry about people being impacted by misinformation and disinformation, but I'm not sure if this is the right way to go about trying to combat that.
And it doesn't work. Here's an example that happened to us at Ticker just yesterday. I want to get your thoughts on this. There was a terrible shooting in Montreal and there was footage of the shooter, and out it went. We watched it very closely to make sure you couldn't see anyone being shot, you couldn't see any victims, just out of courtesy to people who might be scrolling through their feed and didn't want to see that. So we were pretty careful about what we saw. Posted it within minutes. Facebook and Instagram, both owned by Meta, had essentially blocked it from going through, and the reason for that is spreading hatred. Now, that's not spreading hatred, that's spreading the news. And what's interesting is, despite the Ticker page being a news page, social media platforms are now so overly cautious, perhaps after what happened to Facebook with the live streaming by the New Zealand government at the mosque a few years back, that they're now censoring what is very normal for a news organisation to cover.
And that's self-censorship. And I think a lot of that is AI powered as well. So often it'll just look at the vision of what you're putting out there and not actually look at the context in which you are reporting, and then just flag it straight away.
Yeah, and obviously the risks to social media as well, and many of these up-and-coming media organisations. We think about the Daily Oz, obviously Ticker as well, new media organisations that often get overlooked by governments who are used to having to deal with the billionaires that own the older platforms.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You will only get a certain type of news coming through, or if it is news and if it's accurate. And you can't really do that. People will go elsewhere for their news. So if one platform is only showing governmental approved news, they'll go elsewhere. It's just human nature to go and find sources that you are more interested in or that you trust more.
And it's going to break down trust in the government as well. If the government starts to tell you which news services they think that you should look at, it has a different impact. People just don't operate that way as well. We see the rise of, say, Rebel News. The Victorian government banned Rebel News from attending news conferences, and it just sent the numbers of people watching Rebel News through the roof. They became almost a quasi-mainstream news organisation in terms of the views that they were receiving as a result. Clearly, misinformation and the spread of it is an ongoing challenge though, right?
Oh, absolutely. And with the evolution of AI, it's going to become much harder to be able to tell the difference between what is real and what isn't. And I think maybe that's an issue that the government's trying to address as well, with this idea of trying to control what news is actually shown on social platforms. But they don't own social platforms. That's the thing. And it's going to be interesting to see how well this ban in the UK is actually going to come about, because I've heard differing reports here in Australia about the success of it, and that anecdotally I'm hearing a lot of parents saying their kids still have access to social platforms. So it hasn't really been the huge success that I think the government wanted it to be.
It was never going to work, let's be honest, and you've got to wonder why they tried. But the UK is now trying to go down this path too.
I want to see how they're going to try and do it. Are they going to follow Australia's framework, even though it hasn't been as successful as they'd hoped, or are they coming up with something new that will be much more effective? I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, very much. And talk to us about, if companies resist regulation, they really fall into foul with the government with this as well, and certainly these media organisations too. It leads to censorship fears.
Yeah, I think essentially what they are, it's insinuating that they're trying to do is a form of censorship, as you said, by making social platforms say only this news outlet is approved, and it's dictating what people can actually see rather than educating people about how to tell the difference between what is real and what isn't. It's placing the onus on platforms to only show a particular type. And who's to say that, yes, while the media is approved from those outlets, who's to say that it's all accurate as well? I mean, I
Yeah.
think you're right, and they're opening a can of worms with this one.
Oh, it's very true. Look, anyone who believes that authorities give perfect information needs to have followed my career, where you go to a house fire and the firemen and police will tell you the victim was a male in his 70s and 3 days later it was a female who's 5 years old. And we've been reporting, because it's what we've been told, the authorities do not always get it right, and that's something that I think people need to understand a bit better. Let's talk about Meta. It's pausing its internal mouse tracking program amid revelations of sensitive employee data exposure as a company now investigates concerning data security issues. Talk to us about what this actually means and what risks the pause now reveals.
As we've discussed previously, so Meta is trying to train its AI models by recording all of the keystrokes and mouse
Following
moves and
everybody.
things
Yeah.
of its employees to train AI models to basically probably do the job and replace them. But they had to halt it because, funnily enough, employees often do personal things on their computers like banking, looking at their medical records, doing sort of those chores that we don't get time to do separately. And it was found that everyone in the company could access all of the data that was coming through from this sort of training. And so it meant that, yeah, anyone in the organization could access another employee's medical data if they had been looking for that, say, on their lunch break, or their banking information and things like that, which is terrible. And so they've halted it. But Meta said, oh no, we've got security measures in place. There was no issue, but clearly there was an issue. So there's backpedaling. So it's really hard to know how bad this issue is. And really, if there wasn't a problem, why are they halting it now?
Yeah, very much. It's obviously Meta just loves to do strange things. I've got a Quest 3 for my birthday and I've been using that and it's spectacular, but you have to ask yourself, what are they seeing on the other side? Talk to us about how this could impact employee trust with the company as well, because from what we understand, things aren't great when it comes to morale at Meta.
How could it be? You're having every single keystroke tracked and monitored, and then people can access that. So clearly they've tried to stop that from happening. But essentially you're being tracked every movement, every part of your job, every task, because they want to train AI models to do it for you. You're almost like just going to work to put yourself out of a job. So clearly morale is low. They've already fired so many and laid off so many employees as it is, and redeployed others into AI focused roles. So you'd just be sitting there going, okay, how long do I have a job? I think that, and trust in terms of keeping you on as an employee, but also now trust that all your personal information is accessible to everyone else in the company. Really, where can you go from there?
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying stuff. We'll leave it there for now. Dr. Karen Sutherland, appreciate your time.